I'm Donna.
And I'm Michael, and we are
the
Feckners. We're ordinary people. In fact, we're just teachers, Donna.
Yeah, we are.
And we've been led on an extraordinary journey. Life has presented us with some unusual opportunities over the past 10 years, and despite the risks involved, we've embraced them fully, and our glass is overflowing with possibilities.
We never know what happens next, so why not
Take a chance.
Now, for this afternoon's episode, because it's a bit of a heavy one, I thought I'd go for the big fellows. I'm going for a little glass of Veuve Clicquot in a nice, great glass. I love it when it's really fresh and it's sparkly and you can look at all the bubbles, and just as the sun's shining through the glass, it just makes you want to take a sip, which I will right now.
Cheers, Donna.
Asante, Michael.
Well, thanks for joining us again, folks. I hope you've been able to catch up on the extra podcast we've shown you to give us a bit of a background. But today, Donna, there's quite a journey. Quite a journey indeed.
There's a few parts to this one. So I hope you've got a glass of something. It can be sparkling water, but you're going to have to keep up.
Strap in. It's a journey today.
It's a full-on one, this one.
So the year is 2015.
Yep.
And we've returned from France, and we've started researching some of the lost diggers. And we went to a good friend of yours, Liz Bunn, up in Childers, and we talked to them about different things. And out of the blue, one of Liz's friends, a relative I believe, said that they had seen a book called The Lost Diggers of Enoch. And we said, yeah, that's the one that Ross Coulthard had done. They went and bought it for their birthday, and lo and behold...
No, it was actually Christmas. They went through Big W and they saw it on a shelf in Big W at Christmas time. I thought, oh, well, Dad will be interested in this.
Yeah. So lo and behold, the book goes home to Dad, and he opens it up, and inside it, all of a sudden, he realises that the two photos that he's looking at one of the pages are of his dad and his uncle. The C brothers.
Now, we hadn't known about them at this stage, and for us, research was becoming a really important part of our life. So we jumped onto the Australian War Memorial website and we started researching the C's, Thomas and William.
Thomas and William C. We were able to go out to their house where they actually lived.
Meet their family.
And we met the son and the daughter of one of the C brothers, and it was incredible. And I'll see if I can get that interview up.
We actually did an interview with them at that time, and
really good one.
Discussed what they knew about their dads and what they had done. And from what I recall, you can correct me because you like to do that, Michael, but from what I recall, the C brothers had something to do with setting up an RSL on their return.
Yeah, one of the C brothers actually had set up the original RSL in Childers. A way of, because Childers had this incredible history of being the largest number of enlistments per head of population, and unfortunately the largest loss per head of population
for World War I
in the country. The purpose of setting up something for when the boys came home was important, and one of the C brothers saw that as being important. So they did that, continued their farming journey, and lived to ripe old ages. But the legacy is still there through their family, which is just incredible. So we found the C brothers. We always wanted to find a relative of our own of some sort, but we found the C brothers.
Up until this stage, other people had been researching and giving us their material, and we were reaching out to people. But this time, we were actually firsthand doing it ourselves, and it was such an honour. And so we discussed and thought, you know what, Bundaberg region has quite a few veterans and families of veterans from World War I. And so we decided to go to the council and present to them our projects that were in place at the time.
And we went to the mayor, and we found out that obviously Childers had a really strong history during the Great War, a fantastic memorial in the middle of Childers where there was a cannon brought back to I suppose, represent that loss of life that I spoke about in Childers. And it's beautifully done in the Childers War Memorial. You can go inside and you can look at the soldiers that had come back and the ones that had passed away. It's a beautiful monument, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a meeting place for many occasions in Childers.
So the Bundy Council was really very supportive of what we were doing.
We presented the Silent Soldiers of Now book, which we had started. We presented our discovery of the information on the Sea Brothers, and we also presented to them the possibility that maybe sooner rather than later a movie could be filmed in Childers.
And I think, Donna, we had, by that time also, Gian and Paul had created the one of the teasers, and we were able to show that to the council as well.
Yeah, and also I had included the Sea Brothers within the script. So I was always very intent on having that happen so that it became more real and more meaningful for people to see the names of their ancestors within the story itself. So it was well accepted.
Yeah, it was well accepted. Donna, tell me though, why was Childers such an important part, do you think, for the novel, or the movie?
The novel comes later. The movie, I wanted a place that was quintessentially Queensland. Cane farm, red soil, blue sky, in comparison to Vignacourt, which has none of that, beautiful in its own way, but completely different. But also the same size. So Vignacourt and Childers, similar towns, same size, a distance away. Vignacourt is about an hour away from Paris. Childers is a few hours away from Brisbane. So beautiful little communities of men and women who have been behind any projects of signing up for wars or supporting the teams at home. So they were similar but different. But for me, Childers is just Queensland.
And I think the thing is too that the story of Australian diggers going to the Great War is about little communities all over Australia that got together, that signed up for King and Country, and they went off. And we certainly know that Childers was one of those places that really gave it. They threw it in, and they had this huge number of enlistments.
Yeah, so it was important to involve them because we didn't want the movie to just be filmed within a screen set. We wanted some real shooting, and when it comes to that brilliant colour scheme up there, the green, the blue, the red, you can't beat it.
And you know, I think we now had some heroes, and I think Paul and Gian, when we were in France doing the original screenplay, they had mentioned that the heroes of this story were going to be Childers and Vignacourt. Vignacourt and Childers were the essential heroes because of the part that they played as communities as a backdrop.
So we were ready to get this project started. So we had Bundaberg behind us. We had schools involved in things that we were talking about up there, and we were visiting the schools in the next year, telling the kids about the project and also telling the kids about World War One and how proud they should be of Australian soldiers who fought then and still now. So that region became an extra part of this new direction for us in the movie.
And I think one of the councillors up there, Greg Barnes, who was very favourable towards us in the council meetings also, he put us in contact with Bargara State School and St Joseph's School in Childers up there. They become part of a project that we put together.
And Childers State School.
And Childers State School. They became part of a project that we called Billy Makes Mates. And we all of a sudden created this small character of a bear dressed up in a uniform that was called Billy. And we ended up getting one from France as well as on one of the barbecues of a rabbit over there. And they became the mascots. And we started a program between the schools. We had a lovely teacher in France that was supporting us. And the teachers in Bargara and Childers State School, St Joseph's, we were able to move things across them, weren't we?
And I think that came from from my experience as a teacher of younger children, Anzac Ted is one of the most popular books that young children read around Anzac Day and Armistice Day, and about a soldier taking a teddy with him as his mascot. So we chose the teddy for our kids, and Vignacourt, their mascot, is naturally a white rabbit. So we had Robert was the white rabbit and Billy was our teddy, and we prepared a program for schools from year one up to secondary, because we had secondary kids writing to secondary kids here from France to Australia. So that was another little deviation from the main idea of the movie and our book of Silent Soldiers of Nile. So we were constantly we were constantly on the lookout for things that we could do to make this project more real and more ground based. And I think that's what made us continue.
And we had a situation where Greg Barnes had spoken to Bargara State School, and they started making crosses. So every year they would send crosses to Vignacourt. We were able to take them one year and still had the soil from Childers where they'd had them here, and then that soil ended up in France, didn't it?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that project in depth a little bit further, but at this stage our main aim was to get the movie off the ground, which we thought was happening at that time because there was a lot of energy around it. So we launched it at Ridges in Brisbane at the end of 2015, and we had a lot of wonderful people come and watch the teaser and the trailer.
All the way from Childers too. They came down. Yeah. The C Brothers family were there, and others that were part of it. I think Gian came up from down south. We had Max Utrecht, who was one of the original Channel 7 executives who helped discover the original plates. And it was a wonderful event, and we were fortunate enough to have copies of some of the glass plate prints as well to go on display, which we now have. But it was truly a wonderful event, and everyone thought it was fantastic.
And we were just judging the crowd just to see if it was a viable project, if it was just coming from our heads, or whether it was something that maybe other people would be interested in, even if they didn't have someone who had fought in World War One, because we had heard war movies aren't necessarily a favourable genre, that you have to come from a different approach. So we were on a learning curve, and our biggest aim for that night was to find a producer, because there was no way we could get this off the ground at all.
And we rang around, and through Max and a few others that we spoke to, we said, look, we've got this great screenplay now. And Paul and Gian, we'd been to Sydney to see them a couple of times, and they were supportive of the fact that we needed to go elsewhere because they were engaged in other things, but they were never going to be the producers that we needed, and they understood that.
And we always thank them for being involved in and getting it off the ground and talking on the plane and moving us into a direction that we couldn't have possibly
It was
dreamed
their
about.
vigour and their behind the whole project that got us started. And that, look, all through this story, that's what it is. There's been so many ups and downs, but every single person, I believe, has played, and I think we agree that they have played.
They played a part.
They've played a part of some sort.
They've taught us some lessons along the way. So we were excited and thought, well, this is happening. So we both quit our jobs at the end of
That was it. We finished. Donna finished her school job. I finished SQ Water, and we were off on this journey. A really big chance. This was a chance. We took a risk. We decided that this is what we were going to do.
And at that stage, we thought we would to do tours, and while waiting for the movie to start happening, and our book was ready to be produced and out on the market. So we were moving in a different direction.
We had tours. We still have the tours running, and we had people getting more interest every day, wanting to go over and see it. And anyway, I spoke to the people that we knew, and they put us on to Bill Brambrook, a producer from down south that had done a lot of work and been behind Hill 360, which was a great movie that was filmed up in North Queensland. And we sort of thought, well, if we were going to use Childers, then if we could also follow that pattern a little bit, it was great. So we rang him, and unfortunately he wasn't available, and a few other people weren't available. But then we had a contact who said to us, listen, there's a guy on the Gold Coast. His name is Phil Avalon, and he might be the man that might do the job. Now, we didn't know who Phil Avalon was, but we were soon to find out. He had made the first Mel Gibson movie.
And he had amazing stories about his career. He lived on the Gold Coast and he was extremely enthusiastic about the project, and we'll always be thankful to him too for jumping in there, because he took it with vigour and he started the ball rolling. He got some casting agents involved. He talked to us about what was needed, and we struck up a friendship with Phil and started getting the nitty-gritty details down.
I remember the first day we met him, Donna, he said, look, I live on the Broadwater. He lived on a houseboat on the Gold Coast, and we'd read a little bit and we'd heard that Phil was a little bit Hollywoodish to some degree. And I remember meeting him at, our first meeting was at Marina Mirage. We went down to the Broadwater, and in came Phil, as large as life. It was Hollywood at its best.
Yeah.
Had great respect to Phil. We loved the man, but it was Hollywood. We'd never had an experience, and here we had a real live producer in front of us who had made movies and was in the biz. We were quite wrapped in it all.
And he was a Queenslander, so that was really important for us. So Phil took us under his wing, and we started that long process of making this thing happen.
He loved the project. He thought it was a fantastic idea from day one, and we can never, ever forget that, because he, again, was one of those people who gave it a kick along and he got involved. He was on the phone to people everywhere. Before we knew it, we had a casting agent, Greg Apps, and he was looking and he was out there sourcing things. He wasn't a movie producer who had made huge movies, but he made really interesting small-scale movies that got people's attention.
And he's still doing it.
He's still doing it today. He's still doing it today, and we keep in contact with Phil. And he's just recently made, I think, Sons of Summer, which I think is the after movie of the original Mad Max movie, the Mel Gibson movie. Of made in summertime. So it's an interesting story though, but he always be remembered for that.
Yeah. So here we are without work, working on these creative projects that aren't paying any of the bills, and so we decided to take some tours again. So Anzac Day came around and we had a lovely group of people that we took to Vignacourt and ran the barbecue again, and all of a sudden this barbecue was bigger than Ben-Hur. The first time we had the barbecue was in the barn and maybe 100 people. This one was in the local centre, 200, 300
400 people. They were there. It was huge. It came from everywhere. And that was when I think they had the rum-infused beer. It was huge. The people came from other villages. We'd met people that came in with stories. It was just unreal. And all of a sudden, the whole thing took another breath of life.
And so it was, for us, it was making our relationships real with Childers and with Vignacourt for what we were planning to do with the stories for both of those villages. So we were there, and then as fate would have it, our darling son Ryan had his wedding over in Champagne to our beautiful daughter-in-law called Jill. So we had a family wedding straight after Anzac Day and had a lovely time in Champagne. Of course, you have to have a lovely time in Champagne.
You were drinking Tavinger and you were drinking Veuve Clicquot and Mum.
The local wines, the local champagnes from Epinay are really amazing. And so I really enjoyed Avenue de Champagne and just walking along it and just having a few little tastings. But then as we were leaving...
Oh, there's another story here, Donna.
The two people who own the Chateau Marie, where we had the wedding.
An English woman and a Dutch gentleman. They'd owned it for a while.
Yeah, and they noticed our enthusiasm. It's pretty hard not to. If you know us face to face, you know that.
And of course, as I would say, Donna, I look for those opportunities. I run to them, whereas you might walk slowly. I run quickly. And
sometimes I crawl on my knees.
The chateau was this magnificent chateau deep in the heart of Champagne country, where they'd been there for a number of years. They'd run a successful business. The wedding was beautiful, and we stayed on for a few days later.
But they were selling it, and they had bought another property in a place called Pleur, which is much closer to the centre of Champagne.
Not too far away,
Near
about 20
Troyes.
minutes away, yeah.
Near Troyes. So we were just hopping in the car after the wedding and everything, and this lovely lady just said, would you two be interested in running a chateau? And of course, Michael said no before he even put the keys in the ignition. And
I said yes.
Yes, you said yes. And I hit him over the head, basically, all the way back to Paris.
But we'd stayed a couple of extra days there because they whet our appetite a little bit. They said, look, we see that you run tours. This chateau down the road, we're going to renovate it slightly. Come and have a look at it and see what it was. Now, this chateau is in the middle of a little village not far from Verdun as well. A lot of French and English had been around it. The trenches of Massieges were close by. In actual fact, during the Second World War, after the Second World War, the Russian Premier Khrushchev and his ministry, a defence minister, had stayed at the chateau and written their names on the walls. There was cellars underneath. It was incredible.
When we walked in there, though, it had been an aged people's home. So there was some hospital beds and there was some furniture left over, but it was massive. Beautiful. And the mayor of the town was very supportive of getting this project off the ground. And as caretakers, we actually would have been lucky enough to have our own little house attached to the chateau. So guests could be completely independent in the chateau. And we had a little, like a river house that was right beside this
beautiful.
flowing...
It all needed renovations, but we were part of all that. And the Dutchman and the Englishwoman said, well, righto, if you're interested, we're prepared to give you a 5-year contract. And what we'd heard was that if you got a contract in France, that was half the battle. It was over. You'd got the job. We came home, all excited.
I did a contract, I think. I came back. I didn't come back full time. I did a contract. Yep. And we just thought, oh, well, we'll wait. We've been given this opportunity. Let's see what happens. We've got so many projects, so many balls in the air, which isn't unusual when you're married to Michael Fairbairn.
And by that time, we did have a few. We had a chateau, we had a movie, we had a book, we had tours, a whole World War One stuff.
Son who's just gotten married, so and he was married to a beautiful Canadian girl, so he had family in Canada now. So our world was really
and we'd managed to survive because we were of the right age that we could collect a little bit of super. So we took a bit of that and put it all into it.
So when we came home, Phil had found us a director because that was the next part of the missing piece in the jigsaw puzzle to get the movie off the ground. And he found a gentleman by the name of Rod Hardy, who was an Australian living in LA at the time. And Rod was very keen about the project.
Rod had been involved in so many things. He'd worked in Australia for many years on some of the iconic Australian television shows, but then went to the US and got involved in Dynasty. He got involved in a number of space drama-type television shows. He did a few wonderful things, but he was involved in all sorts of things. And he'd made other movies. And he was really also wrapped in this project. He loved it. We spoke to him via Skype at that time, and everything was great.
So we brought him over to Australia, and he met face-to-face with us and with Phil, and we started chatting about what needed to be done. And he introduced a lovely lady by the name of Shirley Pearce to us because he suggested that the script need to be edited. The original script was 170 pages, and I didn't realise that each page equated to 1 minute of film, so it was too long. So he brought Shirley in to cut out all the extras. He also said, and we fully agreed, there were too many battles, and with battles come a lot of prosthesis and explosions and dollars. So he said to cut the budget back a little bit, exclude some of the battle scenes. So we reduced it to around 90 pages, which was more workable. And we spent some time with Shirley, and she led us through the process of how to write a script.
She was a professional screenwriter. She'd already written work for Disney and worked in the States. So she had a great lot of credits behind her. And that was valuable also because we were still teachers, Donna.
Yes, exactly. But we had a story. And throughout all of these podcasts, that's the key. We were just teachers, but we had this great story. So everyone who read it fell in love with it. And it's even more amazing now. So,
and I think, Donna, the other thing too is what you've got to have is you've got to have people who champion your ideas. And we were very lucky. Paul and Gian, Phil, Rod, they were all, and Shirley, they were all championing our idea. We had people who supported them. And that was great.
And that lifted us.
Yes.
But then we got into the reality of we need money, or right, we fixed the script, we need a cast name, we need a major name in order to acquire extra funding, etc., etc.
And that became the story then of, like a movie obviously doesn't get made on little money, it needs big money. And as I said at the beginning, everything was in $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 lots, and we soon found ourselves needing to do that. So we went to Screen Queensland.
We also found ourselves doing a little bit more extra work on the side too. So yes, we went to Screen Queensland for pre-development money. At that stage we were unaware what that was, but that was to get some of these contracts done, all the
scripting done, look for some people who could help us with getting cast, directors and all that sort of thing. So it's a huge list. And I think one of the ladies also who Rod brought on did a budget, and it was something like 60 pages, the budget of
Phil
producer.
brought the line producer on, and she was amazing. I didn't even realise what that job entailed. It's somebody who goes through the whole script and line by line tells you what you need to spend, if you need a table, if you need food. Amazing
Right
job.
down to the people who bring the food in, who turn the lights on and off. There was a person who did everything, and it was all listed on the line production charts, and it started to add up.
So, for me, the biggest question that was ever put to me through this whole process was when we sat with Screen Queensland, and thankfully they did support us, and they loved the story and gave us some pre-development funds. The creative director of the time said, "Who's paying for all of this so far? You've got this project to this point. Congratulations, especially for you two.
Yeah, not many
because
people,
you're not in the business, and not many people in the business can get to this point."
We got to a point where they said, "Not many people get to it."
So she turned to me and she said, "Who has paid for this so far?" And I said, "We have." And she looked at me with seriousness in her face and she said, "You need to stop." And I realised then that we couldn't continue paying for all of these things that were going on.
It was an endless pit.
Every time we turned, it was even, down to dinners and
everyone wanted their little pound of flesh, and we watched that instead of it being 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, it became 10 people, 15 people, and everyone wanted their bit of money.
But not just our little team, our close team didn't. Our close team were basically working for nothing.
They were working for nothing.
So we're very grateful to them. But it was all the extra stuff on the outside, travelling, because we had a read-through in St Kilda, which was amazing. We watched Shirley and Rod take a group of professional actors from Melbourne through the script.
Which was just incredible.
It was spine-tingling because I actually heard... We had a read-through at the Gold Coast and a read-through in Melbourne we had a read-through at the Gold Coast before the script was edited, and then we realised it needed to be cut back. Then we went to Melbourne when Shirley and I had finished working on it, and it sounded so much more professional. So we were watching this all unfold in front of our very eyes, but our funds were depleted.
And the question comes after a while too. People will work for nothing because they are passionate, but there comes a time of fairness as well where they have to start being paid because they've got life as well.
And they're spending time that they could be on other projects that are off the ground. So we were learning quickly. So we realised that, yes, everything was happening and we were very excited, and we thought, well, maybe this is only short term and maybe the movie will be up and running by next year and we can, on the first principal day of photography, pay everybody and thank them for their generosity and their support, and we can see this thing.
We already had a list a mile long, didn't we, of people we had to pay?
Yeah.
That was a really interesting one.
So we got a bit nervous, but we were still excited and we were still high and
Yeah, the energy levels were still increasingly high, but there started to appear some cracks.
yeah. So in the next episode, we'll talk about
We'll
those cracks.
open those cracks and you'll find out what happens next.
But hey, we're still here in 2024 with the same dream and with the same script, well, a different script, but with the same storyline and the same passion for something that we are determined to get up and running. But for those of you who want to make a movie, stop spending your own money.
You got to find something.
Unless you've got a heap of it. If you've got a heap of it, good luck to you. And if you've got a heap of it, give us a ring because we like to talk to you.
But the fact still remains, Donna, that we have come so far. And as Screen Queensland said, they can't believe, and there's got to be a good thing in that we've been able to get to here with the help of all those wonderful people so far. Who knows what the next bit holds?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned as the cracks open.
What?
But it's a great story.
Next.
Take a chance. It's all there.